The Cuban Missile Crisis, an event in United States history that highlights the power of diplomacy. This documentary will show how the United States used diplomacy to avoid a nuclear war and preserve our way of life.
Good evening, my fellow citizens. This government, as promised, has maintained the closest surveillance of the Soviet military buildup on the island of Cuba. Within the past week, unmistakable evidence has established the fact that a series of offensive missile sites is now in preparation on that imprisoned island. The purpose of these bases can be none other than to provide a nuclear strike capability against the Western Hemisphere.
On October 16, 1962, the USSR brought nuclear bombs to Cuba, beginning the Cuban Missile Crisis. The Soviet Union and the United States came to a diplomatic decision that prevented nuclear war and changed nuclear safety laws with the USSR, USA, and United Kingdom. So how did this happen? The USSR was a communist country, so America did not agree with them on most things. The USSR also left World War I because too many of them were dying. America and the USSR did not like each other that much, although they both worked on the same famine relief program, so they had common interests in that. America and the USSR worked together in World War II, but their relationship was tense. This was because America had a delayed entry in World War II, causing thousands of Soviets to die. As World War II ended, the Cold War began between the Soviet Union and the United States. Neither country ever declared war, but it lasted until 1989 when the Berlin Wall came down, marking the collapse of communism in Eastern Europe. In 1961, America tried to attack the USSR's communist ally Cuba, known as the Bay of Pigs invasion. They did this because the CIA wanted to take down the communist government of Fidel Castro. As a result of this, the USSR started creating nuclear bombs to attack America. People across the US started creating nuclear shelters in case of nuclear war. The American government ramped up its nuclear program to defend themselves. This escalation led to the USSR shipping nuclear bombs to Cuba on October 16, 1962, beginning the Cuban Missile Crisis. The President of America at this time was John F. Kennedy. The President of the USSR was Nikita Khrushchev. The Soviets chose Cuba because it was just 90 miles from U.S. shores, and their bombs did not have enough fuel to make it across the ocean. The U.S. secretly set up nuclear missiles in Turkey. On October 16, 1962, U.S. President John F. Kennedy held a secret meeting with his closest advisors to discuss the missiles in Cuba. On October 22, 1962, President Kennedy addressed the nation on radio and television. He was clear and direct about the crisis that threatened America. The USSR had placed medium and long-range ballistic missiles in Cuba, capable of reaching most of the major cities in the Western Hemisphere. President Kennedy announced his plan to surround Cuba with submarines and ships, also known as a naval blockade that they called a quarantine. They did this to defend themselves and make sure that the USSR did not bring any more nuclear missiles to Cuba. The Cuban Missile Crisis lasted for 13 days. The USSR and the US made an agreement that the USSR would get rid of their bombs from Cuba and America would take their bombs away from Turkey. This prevented them from going to nuclear war. Following the removal of nuclear weapons, the US came out of quarantine. Both countries banned above-ground nuclear testing. President Kennedy looked strong in dealing with the Cuban Missile Crisis. Some people thought that he looked weak because they negotiated instead of going to war. The US and the USSR and the UK decided to not use nuclear weapons for war anymore. The USSR and America decided to create a phone line connecting them in case of emergencies. This was called the hotline. Things are very different today because of the Cuban Missile Crisis. America, the UK, and the USSR, now known as Russia, are no longer using nuclear missiles for war. They also banned above-ground nuclear testing. If President Kennedy had acted differently or more hostile to the USSR, then it could have escalated to nuclear war. This shows the importance of diplomacy in world relations.